Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, everybody. Welcome to the new workshop series. This is going to be the first of many that is based on your feedback. So please continue providing that feedback about this workshop, about any workshops that you want us to do in the future, so that, and Chris, you have just covered my notes.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to stop sharing. I'll stop sharing. I'll be ready.
Thank you very much. So yeah, so please just let us know what you think about this workshop. Let us know what you want to learn about in the future, so that we make sure that we cover what you guys are interested in. I'm Karen Woodward, and I'm going to try my best to fill in for Emily today, moderating the workshop with our guest, Chris Lam. Yay! Today we're covering jobs in content creation and social media. You guys have shown a lot of interest in these jobs during the pandemic and during the strikes of this year. So they've been incorporated into the website, and I really encourage you guys to check out those jobs. Now, these content creation opportunities require the exact skill set that you guys already have. It involves editing and writing and producing, in some cases acting, managing. And we were just talking about this before we went live, that these opportunities are only growing. And for me, as somebody who's worked in both entertainment and in social media, I've seen this overlap for a long time now. So today our goal is to give you guys a roadmap as to how to go about making this transition into becoming a content creator for yourselves. Now, don't worry about taking notes, because we're going to send this to you afterwards, but do put in your questions into the panel at the bottom there. We'll get to them as we go. If we don't hit them as we're talking, doing the presentation, we're going to try and get to them at the end. All right, so if you are new to EntertainmentCareers.Net, this has been a resource for both entertainment job seekers and employers for over 20 years. Founder Brad Hall created the site as a resource for people who were looking to break into entertainment, but who didn't have industry connections. That's how I found out about this site when I first came out to LA, because I didn't know anybody. And I looked at jobs there all the time. And but it's since grown to not only be a resource for jobs, but to also fill in any gaps in skill sets or in education, so that you guys can learn a little bit more about what it is that you want to learn. Moving on to our guest, Chris Lam. Super excited, Chris, to have you as the first guest today. We have been friends for a long time. You have more than 14 years of social media marketing and content creation experience. I'm just going to pull up your bio here so I don't miss anything. You have led social media initiatives for major brands like Green Dot, Hallmark Channel, and Fandango, which is what you were doing when you and I first met. Your first career was in nonprofit fundraising, which is quite a pivot. And you currently work with small business owners to simplify their digital marketing, to help grow their audience, and to increase their revenue. You currently teach digital marketing with the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Businesses program. And not on your bio here, but you are a content creator.
Yes.
I have hired Chris to do TikToks for one of my clients, and she's absolutely fabulous. So with that, Chris, take it away.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm going to do a share screen because I need to show off our slides. Okay. Now, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to open up my chat to make sure that I've got my chat open, and I'm going to open up the Q&A. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for spending the next hour with me and the EntertainmentCareers.Net family. Again, my name's Chris Lam. I'm a digital marketer. Karen's mentioned this. I've been in the trenches of social media marketing when it was in its infancy. So basically back in the dinosaur ages. I have worked in agencies, in corporate settings as a W-2 as an employee, and now as a consultant and an educator. Now, in the last 10 years or so, I've actually focused on helping small businesses with their digital marketing, including working with influencers and content creators. So this is why I'm here, right? Because I'm now coming into this, helping brands match up with creators. Okay, now before we even get into the next slide, let's talk about you. So if you are able to type into the chat, how about could you let me know in the comments who you are and what you're considering as your next career, what your goals are as we move through this session? Because if this, as you're telling me what you're looking for, it helps me kind of craft a little bit, customize this deck a little bit more. Q&A is the only chat open, FYI. Oh no.
Webinar chat is not open. We'll pop it in the Q&A then.
All right, let's do it in the Q&A. That's okay.
Oh, wait, everyone, I think we can.
You know what? We're just going to keep going.
We're just going to keep going.
Karen, you're going to be my moderator. You're going to help me do the admin stuff. All right, let's get started.
All right.
Okay, so here's our agenda for today. We are going to talk about what it means when you hear the words content creation or content creator and how you fit into this rising industry. We have seen people rise up and become superstars, but we're just talking about how you can take your creativity and pivot into a content creation role. So when you log off today, these are the concepts I want you to be comfortable with. I want you to understand the content creation universe. Know that there are opportunities in entertainment and also in other industries. I want you to remember that you can leverage your work experience and your skills and your interest into a content role. And then in addition, I want you to think about, and I'm going to call this back later, I want you to think about connecting and building that giant spider web that is your network. I always think about, and I think this just happened this year, right? The Spider-Man movie came out, Miles Morales, and all the different Spider-Verses. And I keep thinking about how Miles is the hub and there's a spider web around him and he's connected to Gwen and the other Peters. And in every space, they're also connected to each other. So I want you to think about that spider web and how this network can help you and how you can help that network as well. So because this is very reciprocal. And then we will wrap up with Q&A, or we can just answer as we go along, as long as we have time. And Karen's going to just keep...
The chat is open now, so you can go.
Okay.
But I'm seeing Q&A too.
Okay, excellent. And away we go. Let's just keep moving.
Yeah.
So we dive right in with this. What is content creation? Well, let's talk about Wikipedia and their definition. Content creation is the act of producing and sharing information or media content for specific audiences, particularly in digital context. So here's my question to you. You could put it in the chat if you'd like. Have you ever, you can raise your hand too, or a thumbs up. Have you ever gone to Yelp and read a review about a restaurant? And on the flip side, have you written a review on Yelp? Have you gone to IMDb to look for a movie and looked at reviews there, or Rotten Tomatoes? Or have you published an article about a particular topic, blog post, a YouTube video, a social media video, a picture of you and your children at Disneyland, because that's what you're into in social media. All of that is content. It's not just the social media stuff, but also the long form content. So YouTube videos, articles, online courses, templates that you may create and you're selling to other businesses. It could also be podcasts as well. So all of these different things, that's all content. This is all online content that we are consuming. So now, as we go along through this deck, I want to also flag some of these screenshots that I took and I posted onto the deck. So I want to kind of show you the breadth of content creators and content creation that we see across all different industries. The first image that you see with the little woman, that's the Milwaukee Public Library. They're using social media to engage their constituents and to get them to go to the library, learn more about the library. Did you know all the content in the library is free as long as you have a library card? The woman in the back, this is this is Boston Consulting Group, right? They're using social media to hire more people, more consultants. So again, they're just trying to connect with their audiences. And that's what we're doing as well. As consumers, we're trying to connect too with certain brands or people that we identify with or we think are important or funny, right? Okay. And in the chat, if you have any funny or fun brands that you follow or people that you follow that you enjoy, please throw it in the chat. I would love to follow them as well. I'm always looking for content creators and brands that are doing funny things or they're trending and they're really great at creation. Okay, let's keep going. Now, before we talk about you, I want to talk about consumers and brands, customers, especially in the B2C space, so business to consumer space. So I want to talk about consumers and how it relates to your job search or your pivot into content creation, either for yourself or in-house. These stats, this data should not be surprising, right? We're all consumers in some kind of form. We're on social media, we're online because we want to learn about something. We want to see someone else who may have used a certain product or a service. I also want to be entertained. I mean, right now I've been seeing a lot of, I don't know if you've been on social, but I've been seeing a lot of Spotify Wrapped memes going around because it just launched yesterday. So I'm seeing a lot of that going in, right? We see that people are sharing Instagram Reels a billion times a day through DMs. So we're not only consuming, but we're also sharing that content. So I want you to kind of think about this on the consumer side, because as you work through as a content creator, you're going to be thinking about consumers. You're also going to be thinking about brands and what they want their consumers to see, or what they want their consumers to do on social, online, etc. Okay. All right. Now, brands, again, they know this. They know that brands know that consumers are more likely to, like, let's say, watch a movie because their friends or their family members recommended it, right? Or someone that they identify with, they're recommending it. Consumers are not going to watch a movie just because, Warner Brothers says, yes, you should just watch this. You're never going to do it. You're always going to kind of see peer-to-peer, human-to-human. Is this something that I might want to look at or watch? Am I going to go to Rotten Tomatoes and see the critics' reviews, or the regular person's review? Am I going to see it on Instagram or TikTok? And what's that review going to look like, right, in terms of a movie? It could also be a service. It could also be another kind of product, a CPG product, perhaps. Okay. All right, let's keep going.
Chris, we're seeing some what people are doing, what they're looking to do. We have a handful of broadcast journalists who are looking again.
Even better, broadcast journals. Okay, so I'm going to pivot I'm going to digress for just a second. One person that I just actually met this year, actually over the summer, was she was an anchor person in the Bay Area. She pivoted into SEO. So again, creating content that is optimized for a brand's website. It was completely, and now she's into AI and ChatGPT and teaching people how to use ChatGPT brands. But I just, this is great. I love that we've got so many broadcast journalists who are thinking about pivoting. And because again, when I think about journalists and people who are anchors or writers or reporters, you're all writing stories. And the through line here is going to be, can you tell a story?
In just 3 minutes or less.
In three minutes or less for social, maybe long form on YouTube, could be a little bit longer than that. Okay, so now the content creation landscape, the universe, right? It's diverse. Brands are looking for user-generated content. They're using that user-generated content, sponsored content, ambassadors, affiliates, in-house creators, influencer, marketing managers, all of these different types and more. This is just a short list of what brands and businesses are looking for. And I'm talking about large corporations, right? Like Fortune 500 corporations, but also smaller businesses, small and medium-sized businesses who have a budget. They're looking for this help because they're small and they need help. Maybe they can't hire someone in-house. They're going to hire UGC. So UGC, if you're familiar with this, is user-generated content. This is regular people creating content that sits on or is published on the brand side, on the brand's platforms, their accounts. It does not sit on your platforms. Sponsored content, though, can sit on your accounts. So you've seen this before on Instagram or TikTok where someone says ad, hashtag ad. This is a video or a reel or a carousel picture, carousel pictures of me and toothpaste, right? That's an ad. That's sponsored content. Ambassadors, this, in regular life, right? When we talk about brand ambassadors, it's the same thing translated online. You could be an ambassador and you could be representing a certain brand. Maybe it's a certain type of Post-it note. And this is it. This is what you use. You're a teacher. You use Post-it notes every day. Here it is. You can be ambassador for a year. half a year, depending on what the brand wants, right? And then affiliate marketing. So this is actually, there's two different ways of seeing this. People are looking for affiliates, and creators are wanting to become affiliate because they can get a percentage of sales coming through to them, right? You see this on most frequently, you see this on Amazon affiliates or Shopify. Sorry, not Shopify, LTK, like to know it. So you'll see that they have affiliate marketing links. So certain tracking links on certain links that they post. And when you click on something and you purchase whatever it is through that link, a percentage of that sale goes back to the person, the creator, the influencer, the person who is the affiliate. Okay. What else can I tell you? Oh, so now we talked about freelance, but there's also this growing demand of in-house content creators across all industries. So here's a couple of screenshots for both in-house and freelance. So you'll see the QuickBooks screenshot. They're looking for, this is from a creator marketplace called Brands Meet Creators. They're looking for TikTok creators who can produce 7 videos for QuickBooks' TikTok channel. So again, that's UGC, user-generated content that sits on the brand's platform. Briogeo is the same way. Now, on the in-house side, I found 2, just typing the word content creator or content onto LinkedIn, I found the Monterey Bay Aquarium is looking for a senior content creator who is bilingual. So if that's you, let's apply. If you're interested, you're over there in Monterey, California, you're interested in the aquarium and sea life, maybe that's something for you to think about. Also, bottom left.
Looking here on what people are currently doing and what they want to look, I'm seeing a lot of the Lori, the sports TV producer, you could go in-house. That is a skill set. I missed her, but she was a writer of short stories. They would love, anybody in-house would love to have you because you would be able to write. You can write short stories. That means that you can write both short form for social and long form blog posts.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So every skill that you have already, it's transferable. Absolutely. It's just on a different medium. That's all it is. And then one more on the lower left-hand side, Boba Tea Protein, a company in Dallas, Fort Worth, is looking specifically for a TikTok creator. So we're thinking of short form video, very quick, on trend, and a video expert, someone who actually can create those videos, right? So again, it doesn't have to be, you must be a social media director right off the bat. It could be something so niche and so targeted, like this TikTok creator position. It's an in-house position. It's not even a freelancer. You are a W-2. You are going to just talk about boba tea protein all day long on TikTok, and creating videos for that brand. You can do that. So it runs the gamut. Okay. How are we doing here? We doing okay? Can I keep going?
Yeah, keep going. This is, hey, but I do want to say, almost everybody on here, their favorite TikTok is Lionsgate.
Which is great. I love it.
Does have a good TikTok.
It's hilarious. Yeah. I think, does Lionsgate also still, are they the ones that still own Twilight? Because I feel like Twilight is coming back again. There was like talk about a reboot, but then also before this whole talk of reboot, I think this was during the pandemic where people were like rehashing Twilight screens, clips, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, just always remember, you love the Lionsgate, and just remember to ask yourself why. What is it about their particular TikTok that it is that you like, and then figure out how you could do that for a brand, because it's never specifically like, I like Lionsgate because they have, movies. It's always, I like their use of humor or something more broad like that.
Yes. I see on the Q&A, will this be available later as a video on demand? I believe so. We are recording this. So yes, I'm going to say yes. Brad can say no later. But I'm going to say yes.
And we have another question. How would you break into visual content creation? All I see is senior level opportunities.
Yeah. You want to take this, Karen? Because
I will take this one. First of all, just because a company says they want senior level doesn't necessarily mean that they need senior level. What I found is that the younger you are, the more you already understand video. So they may think they want senior level, but really they just want somebody who knows how to do X, Y, and Z. Odds are you probably already do because you're a digital native. Otherwise, how would you break in? Just do it. Create your own YouTube or your own TikTok and just do it. And by doing that, then you already have a portfolio, and then you can go after senior level jobs, mid-level jobs, and you can prove that you already know how to do this.
Yeah. It's just do it. It's literally the Nike, follow the Nike motto. As much as you may not like Nike, just do it. Just done is better than perfect. We need to show off a portfolio. That's in a couple slides. So hang tight here. But let's go here to content creators, freelance versus in-house. This is an abbreviated breakdown on the difference between a freelance content creator and an in-house content creator. So on the left-hand side, when you're freelance, you are a one-stop shop. You probably already know this. Those of you who are thinking about going into production or staying in production, you are now your own production company. You are pitching, sketching or outlining, you are filming, you're editing, you're lighting, you're scripting, you're writing social copy, you're looking at data, and so on and so forth. So this is, I mean, you are your own production company. You may also be paid by a flat rate per content piece. So what I've been seeing and what I've been working with content creators on the smaller end side, on the small business side, is it's a flat rate for one video to try you out. And then if we like you, we're going to ask for 3 more videos for another rate. And we ask creators, what's your rate? Because we'll try and figure out if we have budget to actually pay you to do this. And if we don't, we'll see how else we can be creative in trying to work this out. Because sometimes we have creators that we really like and we just want to keep them. But as they get experience, their rate also goes up. And so we're trying to catch them hopefully in a rate that we can afford, and also a rate that they are comfortable with.
Yeah, this is actually a good segue to another question I see here. Oh, by the way, Brad says that this will be on our YouTube channel.
Excellent.
So here's a question. I have found that even with a portfolio, if it is not exactly in their industry, that they won't look at it. I hear that. I don't disagree with it, but I think it all depends on who the person is that's looking at it. I've seen that people, and as a hiring manager myself, I can see, well, I'm looking for somebody who is, I had a cannabis client, so I certainly wasn't going to look for somebody who did makeup, or I don't know, it might, but I wanted, in that case, if I wanted somebody who, for cannabis, I would look at somebody who had done alcohol. So anybody who was more familiar with the fact that cannabis is such a regulated industry. So I do think that that is, it can be an issue that you're not doing exactly what it is that they're looking for, but that kind of says something about yourself too, right? So if you're more interested in beauty, or you're more interested in sports or whatever, then look at companies that do that, because they will be more likely to hire you.
Right. The hiring manager may already have some preconceived notion or some kind of expectation that's ridiculous, and it's not meshing, it's not syncing with your portfolio. And that's just where maybe we try again with different videos, or showing off your technical skills. Or for me, and I'll tell you, and Karen knows this, I have a client currently who is B2B, so business to business. We're only selling to distributors, like the people that supply paper plates to convention centers. Those are the people we're looking at. And it's a pretty dry industry, and it's not sexy like entertainment. And so we're looking for people who can there's no way I'm going to find a content creator that's going to be like, yes, I totally do paper plate content creation. Like that's what we do. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is, can you tell a story? Is there a particular angle that you're taking with whatever product you're doing? It doesn't even have to be the paper plates. It could be something else. Is it, could it be related, like sustainability or recycling or compostability, right? Or is it something about concerts and sports arenas? Because, those folks also use paper plates. Also, grocery stores need paper plates. So can I see something in your portfolio that's a certain angle, your perspective, right? Your story, your voice, your take on a particular product or a service. That's what I'm looking for as a hiring manager.
Don't
So
make the hiring manager do the heavy lifting. You need to spoon feed them. You
yes,
tell them why
you
you're
do.
perfect. You know, like I
Yes.
know that all my experiences, in creating silly videos, but I use that humor to bring levity to a serious topic or whatever. Just you have to tell them why they should hire you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Job
Here's
hunting 101.
Here's an example. So here's an example on the left-hand side. So this is a woman, this is a creator who was hired to create content for St. Pete's Visitors Bureau. She is highlighting the beach and accessibility for wheelchair-bound tourists. So again, there's an angle here, right? She is disabled and she's literally showing off that it's not a carpet, it's a type of material so that the wheelchair wheels can actually roll onto sand. And that's really important to see. Okay, now I'm going to flip it on the other side. On the in-house side, if you're deciding on being an in-house creator, you may be the creator, or you may be the one managing all the internal and external teams, including other creators, right? So here's an ad. Here's an ad for an in-house social media manager for the Cincinnati Reds. I'm a Dodger fan because I'm born and raised in LA, so go Dodgers. However, this job listing was on EntertainmentCareers.Net. I looked for content, and that's what pulled up. This is a job where they're looking for an expert at creating entertaining content that supports community growth. So again, there is a business goal to these jobs. And so again, if you're in Cincinnati, maybe this might be a job for you. Now, considering all of these different types of roles, we go about freelance for yourself or for brands, or in-house for a particular company. I want you to really think about working on pulling out your work experience and your skills, and then taking those skills and applying to these types of jobs. It's not going to be content creator. Sometimes that title's not even there on company listings. It could be completely different.
That's a good segue for a question. How do you get over the interview hump? I feel like I'm getting a lot of interviews, but struggling to get them to see how my skills convert. It actually goes back to what we were just saying. You're gonna have to figure out how to do that heavy lifting yourself. You have to know how your skills convert, and then you tell them how your skills convert. If they still don't see it, then they're not the right company for you.
I think that's a great answer. Also, I would ask straight, because I know that, because remember, you are also interviewing the company and you are also interviewing the hiring managers. So as they're asking you questions and you're answering those questions, I would ask them as well. What are you exactly looking for? Because here are these skills that I've got. I've done this before. I've done it for years now. I've done production, video production. Now I'm doing podcast producing, and I know how to use X, Y, and Z tools. We've used this before. I've interpersonal skills, which is very important with talking to both external and internal teams. And so I would absolutely ask. I think it comes with age that I'm no longer afraid to ask questions and just say, well, what do you need? What are you looking for? Why did you not choose me? Straight up, just ask, why did you not choose me? I would like to know so that I can be better for the next interview, and and the company that I may work with next time.
Yeah, just remember, every person you interview with wants to know how you are going to make their life easier. That's what your goal is when you interview. Chris, there was another question about rates that you briefly have talked about.
Right.
But I'm trying to learn about rates. I've been doing a ton of research. I'm finding that it runs the gamut. That is so
It
true.
does. It does.
She's looking to create pricing packages for herself. Chris.
Okay, so so this runs the gamut. We can keep talking about this, and I'm going to have people in this chat and in the future who are going to come and say, oh, that's too low or that's too high. It runs the gamut because of the value you place on your work. That's one. And then there's the second part that you don't know about as a creator. You don't know about the company's budget of like how much they can pay you. But I'll tell you, going through creator marketplaces, Brands Be Creators, Creatorland, Billow, Creator.co, Shopify collabs, LTK. It runs the gamut depending on the industry. But what I've seen is there are people who are brands who are willing to pay about $50 per video, all the way up to 200 to 500 to 1,000 to 20,000. It just depends on the niche, the industry, what you're bringing to the table, and where they're at, where the company is or the team is at when it comes to hiring and activating creators. Sometimes they're only going to activate 10 for the entire country. Or sometimes they'll say, you know what, we have a giant budget and we're going to pay creators, let's say $500, and we're going to try and get 600 of them. So that's a completely different budget, right? It kind of depends on the industry, depends on the business, and depends on what you bring to the table too. You know, if you're great at this, I mean, I'll tell you that I do my best, and I'll full disclosure, I do my best not to pay, or I do my best to get my clients and prospective clients. And when I talk to brands, especially smaller businesses, I always try and say, please try not to pay less than $100 a video, because there's so much that goes into just even a 30-second video, right? Think about commercials, and we're going to put it into a tiny scale. Again, you are a one-stop shop. So I always try to be as ethical as possible and as transparent to the brands too. We're talking to normal, regular people who need cash to pay their rent. You know, it's not exposure. It's not for free or for trade. It is, no, you have to pay them for their job and what they're doing. So I'll say it depends on the pricing packages. I mean, I've seen packages that are 500 for 3 videos. And then I've seen packages that are 1 video for $500, because again, it's also that creator's reach and that creator's experience and longevity in content creation for themselves as a brand.
Yeah. And if you're new to this, you need to figure out how much it's worth it to you to go through the experience of making this video, right? So are you, filming it and editing it? And are you writing it? Like, how much work are you actually doing, going into this video? Because that plays a large part as well, right? If they know exactly what they want you to do and they have a script for you and they're basically just like, film it, well, that might take you an hour. But if they want you to do something from scratch, come up with the idea, write it, like that's going to take you much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to rates, I don't want to go, because again, these are not hard rates. It kind of depends. My favorite word, it depends. My phrase, that's the phrase, it depends. The other thing is that you see on the left-hand side of this slide is usage rights differ. So when I just talked to you about rates, that's just organic posting. So that's just me saying, okay, Karen's going to pay me $100 for a video about me drinking coffee for 30 seconds, and I'll talk about whatever it is, Starbucks. And that's it. But if Karen decides that she wants to use that same video because it's done so well, if she wants to use it as a social ad or in an ad placement somewhere on Facebook, on TikTok, on her website,
things get more expensive.
It's different, because now you're using me, my name, image, and likeness for this post. So I know I'm starting to get into the weeds, but I want you to think about, there's the rate for the UGC, and then when brands come back to you, or if you have a contract ready or some kind of a statement, you could say, this is for the 1 video, X amount of dollars. But if you decide that you want to use my video for a social ad, whether it's on any of the platforms, that's ×4 now, and then they will agree or not agree.
Yeah.
Because they're using your video as an ad, and I want you to make sure that you get paid for that. So that's the organic, and then the paid.
And to very quickly get into the weeds, like, don't ever create videos that have another brand's logo in them or something that has to be like, you don't want to get to a copyright issue. Do yourself a favor and learn about social media law. There are a lot of really good TikToks. I mean, TikToks, yeah, and Instagrams that cover this. And there's a lot of stuff that you probably haven't thought about. And so I would educate yourself on that.
Yeah, just get to know this space. And there are attorneys who do help social media content creators with this kind of these kinds of agreements as well. And if you want to do it yourself, or if you want to go into an agency and do that as well. Okay, so I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, we've got 25
let's
minutes. I think we've been talking too much.
Okay, so again, let's go into the next slide. So who's hiring? So it's funny because I was just thinking, well, who isn't hiring? I know that we do have some layoffs, but in terms of content creators, every industry is probably hiring. You name it, there probably is somebody who's looking for someone to help them with content creation. You don't have to be the face of the brand, but they need somebody to help them with some kind of social media or online content. And it doesn't have to be video. It could also be blog posts. They might need a content writer. They might need someone who does email marketing, right? That's writing and making sure that the setting things up, the templates are correct. There could be someone who wants to hire you just to create templates, templates on Canva, or AR filters on Snapchat. There are plenty of different kinds of content that you can create, that you can use, you're using your skills to do, right, for others or for yourself.
Yeah, and here's a question here. As
yes.
a newbie to this business, which types of production companies, organizations, or brands would be good to approach? I'm also bilingual. Oh, that's going to help you.
Yeah. Okay. Karen.
My initial thought to this is approach the brands and organizations, production companies that you have an affinity to. Whatever you are interested in, research that company, see where you might be able to help. Production companies, I don't know if that would be my first choice, because a lot of production companies, I think, probably have a marketing department behind whatever is distributing their film that's doing it for them. Having said that, one of my own companies is a production company. So my own client is a production company. So it definitely does exist. But yeah, I mean, I do your research.
Yeah, I would reverse engineer it.
Yeah,
I'd reverse engineer it. So the properties that you like, or the shows or the movies, or any of the media that you like, I would reverse engineer and see if there is a marketing department, or if you want to go into production, if there are any openings and any ways to send an introduction email, or reach out, or ask someone that you might know who has a connection to ask and just do an introduction for you. And that, I mean, a lot of this is reverse engineering things, right? What do you want to do at the end of the day? I want to be the VP of marketing. Okay, well, how do we back this in? And how are we using our skills here to kind of bring us onto this journey?
Also, look on the website, see what jobs are there. Pour over the website and take note of what jobs interest you the most. And you will start to see a pattern of what you're interested in, and then apply to those jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And also in EntertainmentCareers.Net, there's a plethora of listings. And again, there are production companies that are listing jobs in that on the website as well. So take a look at that as well. Okay, so here I want to talk about content creation. So when I think about content creation, yes, we are EntertainmentCareers.Net. However, even in unexpected, non-sexy industries like pharmaceuticals or financial services, content creation is in high demand, right? They need people. Again, the through line here is they need people like you who can tell a story, technically on face on a camera or behind the scenes. They need you to tell a story. Or can you tell a story? Look at these bullets here. They're pretty much the same ones you'll see on a marketing or communications or sales job listing, right? Attention to detail, listening skills, research skills, problem solver, personable. We want happy, well, not, I don't know about happy people, but we want personal people that we can actually connect to.
And also, we want people that we personally want to deal with every day.
On Slack or not. Now, the person, the screenshots here. So the gentleman in the back, this man is he's an attorney who helps people with their student debts and loan, student debt, student loans. This is his TikTok. Even in an industry that's like super not sexy, right? Bankruptcy is not sexy. It's, that's not entertainment, but there's a need for this content. This is why he's blown up as the, I think he's called like the money wise lawyer. The people in the forefront of the screen, these two people, these two people are, they represent a pharmaceutical company, but they are not selling to customers like me and you. They're selling to pharmacists and manufacturers. So it's B2B. So again, they need someone who is holding the camera, directing them, possibly scripting them, because, you know, pharmaceuticals and talking to pharmacists, I'm not sure, you know, I'm not a pro at this, but we definitely would love for these two, you know, these two senior level of people to talk to pharmacists at a level that the pharmacists want to hear from them, right? So again, thinking about this, it's not just like social media, but it's really how can we place and produce content with these two people who work in pharma who can market to pharmacists, right? Okay, let's keep going. Are we doing okay? I know we're
doing good on questions. I'm seeing some that we could probably get to at the end, like
okay.
Tools and stuff like that, but we'll get to that.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Creative skills. Okay, so whether it's writing or video editing, graphic design, or podcast production, right? These are all entryways to a variety of content creation roles. We've talked about this already. During the pandemic, again, if you want to do a thumbs up or a thumbs up, a hand up, or whatever, during the pandemic, here's my question. During the pandemic, when you were staying home, did you consume content? Were you zombie scrolling on social media? And then my other question is, during the pandemic, while you were consuming content, did you create content? Because many people did. 200 million people decided to become content creators, influence bloggers, videographers, all the way from it's before 2020, but by 2022, we have 200 million creators now. They created side businesses offering to create content for other brands or other people, product reviews, recipes, stories, templates, those AR filters that I'm talking about, ghostwriting, that's another way of content creation. Karen and I talked about yesterday about the 200 million content creators and whether that looked like hard competition. Okay, well, sure, there's competition, but again, it depends on your niche and your specialty. Because remember that boba tea job listing that wanted specifically a TikTok creator? I mean, that's a specific niche and platform that they're looking for. So again, it kind of depends. I truly don't think that there's that much competition. I think it's great, especially for a brand, to be able to see a breadth of content creators that they can choose from and say, oh yeah, it's not always the same 50 that we're working with. There are 100,000 that we can choose from that may also resonate with other markets for the brand, right? Okay, and then for businesses on the middle side, the middle section here, businesses are invested in creators. I think we're going to see more of this next year. We saw it a lot this year. I think it's just going to keep bumping up. So I think their budgets are going to increase in building out a budget for content creators. So UGC creation, sponsored content, ambassadors, affiliates. And in addition to that, I think, and offshoot, I digress about this, but I think their budget is going to be a little bit higher for ads too, social ads using UGC as part of their content and their marketing strategy. Okay, what else can I tell you? And I wrote down in my little note, and I even have it in a Post-it note here. I said, what is unique about you? And we talked, and there was a person who talked about the portfolio and how they weren't, the hiring managers weren't hiring them. I think I say we keep going, because your key competitive advantage is that there's only one of you. Right? One of you, not you, but you. You are unique because it's you. It's your voice, it's your story, and it's your perspective. And I push on this because I feel like some people get really bogged down with, oh no, there's another Asian mom with a kid who does, no, but I have my own story. I have my own perspective, and my own, my voice is different from the next Asian mom with the kid, so I just want to make sure that we celebrate our uniqueness and our skills and what we bring to the table. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep going. So here we go. Oh, so at the end of the day, we want to know, what kind of job do you want? What is your end goal? And we're going to work backwards a little bit. So from what I understand, many of you are still kind of many of you are still focused on entertainment. So I'm going to keep there. Maybe it's just getting your foot in the door. Maybe it's using your skills or work experience and showing it off. This is what I want. Just because some of you are not even in entertainment, but you want to go into entertainment or into media. And Karen just told you about my story. I started a nonprofit fundraising with a women's health organization. That is way on one side of the spectrum from social media marketing, digital marketing for paper plates, selling to venues, right? That's like completely different. So, but I was able to use, and I know you can do this too. You're using your storytelling skills. You're using the skills. I'm literally in nonprofit fundraising. I'm event planning. I'm talking to donors. I'm trying to convince people with convincing language to give me money to provide women's health programs, right? So I'm using communication skills, writing skills. I'm using my face. I'm calling people. All of that translates into different roles. And one of them, I think I wanted to take a look at the social media marketing manager role, even coordinator, assistant, specialist, manager, director. You probably already know this. You need to know the platforms. You're probably familiar with the platforms. You need to know where social sits within a marketing department, and then where social sits within the marketing department, and also the company, right? Where does it sit? How do you play with others? If you're the social media marketing manager, how do you integrate your work and your goals with the email marketing manager or the affiliate marketing manager or the sales guy or the customer service lead or operations or finance or risk? How do we work together? We need to have some experience doing that. And really, again, it goes back down to that last bullet in the couple slides before. Being personable is super helpful, right? Being able to kind of work with others in both senior management level and also direct report level, interns, coordinators, external teams, etc. Creativity. You're all creative. Let me tell you, I have like 1% creativity. All of you here from Entertainment Careers, this community here, you're all creatives. So creativity is a marker. I appreciate and I value creativity. I'll tell you that as a social media marketing manager myself, managing up and down, copywriting, making sure that you can write, and understanding language and understanding how it's changed over the years. Social copy sometimes does not translate to email copy or long form content.
Yeah, and that's actually how I got into this business. I segued into social as a writer. So I was a writer, and I wrote all the social copy, which made me also the social media manager because they didn't have those as two separate roles. And so then I became, I just grew in that space because I started off as a social media manager because I was a writer. So I would think about the skills that you have that you could segue into something else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes back to video editing, right? Video editor, video creator, producer within creative teams or by yourself, when we're not just looking for someone, and especially in brands and in the corporate space, we're not looking for someone who can just like cut and splice, right? We're looking for someone, again, who can tell a full story for us. Can it, the skill here, in terms of video editing and video producing, really understanding, not just like I'm creating this video, but taking it 4 or 5 steps further. How does this video relate to all the other departments and teams how does it relate to the marketing strategy for the company, right? Or for the brand if you're in-house, or sorry,
more than just creating a cool video. That's important too. But if you understand how it fits into the broader strategy of how that product or service is being marketed, like, you're golden. They're never going to let you go.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. One more role here. The podcast world. That's booming. Who doesn't have a podcast? Even Karen has a podcast.
I have a podcast.
Your audio production skills are wanted. You could be producing as a freelancer, or you could be in-house with a company. If you take a few steps further, this can also lead into other opportunities into podcasting or audiobooks. right? Or digital storytelling, all important parts of content creation. And then on the right-hand side, that little block here, these are other roles that I would love for you to consider when you're thinking about job searching, especially on EntertainmentCareers.Net. Here are some terms, it's not the end all be all. This is not an absolute. This is just some suggestions. Taking a look at just content writer, long form, short form. You know, some of you are script writers, story editors. We need those people too. We need like consistency.
You guys are our new blog post writers and email marketing writers.
Absolutely. Content strategists, creative services, programming. So I did a search on EntertainmentCareers.Net. I typed in content in the search bar, but there is actually a content creator job listing where there's a whole section of them. But just typing the word content, it pulled up so many jobs that needed to be filled, and content was listed in the tasks, not on the title, not the title role, but just the task. So I encourage you to take a look at what you want to do and then see if the roles match up, you know, and take a look at the tasks too, because that might be something that you want to do, but then the title doesn't really match. That's okay. I mean, it's the stuff that you want to do. Titles are titles. Now, okay, so we know what we want to do. We need to show it off, right? We talked about portfolio. So before I go into this, the screenshot here on the left-hand side, Burbank Bomb. This woman is a producer. Oh, sorry, was a producer. She was a producer for, I think, the Hallmark Channel, and then she did some other production stuff. And then she started a family, and she said, I don't want to be doing 20-hour days. So she pivoted and became a side business herself. And she created a blog, a website about Burbank and family stuff, activities, what's happening with the city and the region, etc. And now she's a content creator, and she creates content as well for others. So again, we're pivoting, right? So she was a producer, she was an associate producer, then a producer, and then started a family and said, no, I have children now. I can't do the 12-hour, 20-hour days. I will start a side business doing this. So I just want to kind of show off a different way, you know, where she's going backwards the other way, where she's already a producer. She said, nah, I'm going to take those skills and become a content creator. Okay, so if you're considering considering freelance work as a creator, then I suggest that we create a portfolio, right? You can even use Canva to build a portfolio, free Canva. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of creators use Canva as their portfolio. You can embed video, you can hyperlink your sample content. The first two things are the most important. I need to know your name, first and last. And I also need to know, as a brand, I need to know your contact information. Do not make me hunt for your contact information. That means your email address, because I want to be able to track who I'm talking to. Can I actually talk to you and, you know, talk about contracts and payment and things like that? You know, I'm not going to DM you on Instagram. I need it. This is a business. I'm representing a business, right? Brands that you've worked with or created content for. We have, I feel like there was another slide for this, but here, if you haven't started with brands, start with what you have already. So you can have, oh gosh, let's go with my Post-it note example again. You can create a video about Post-it notes, and you can tag the brand. This is not paid content, but it is an example of what you can do for other brands, showcasing something like Post-it notes or anything else that you like to your hobbies, your interests, products that you like, services that you enjoy. Okay. Now, on the flip side, if you are considering an in-house role as an employee, then you need to adjust your resume so that it highlights what you've done in the creation space, right? How does your attention to detail, your listening skills, your customer service experience, your video editing skills, how does this give you an edge over others? So I'd like to see that on a resume as well. And I don't do as much hiring anymore. Right now, I'm just working with businesses and creators. But again, this is very important because sometimes I send these resumes out to other folks as well. And I know that Brad and EntertainmentCareers.Net, they've got a whole database that you can, I believe you can also create an account and put your resume there so that it's there and hiring managers can check on your resumes, okay? All right, next slide. I think we have a couple more. So let's talk about outreach. So Karen talked about it before. If you're brand new, the best thing to do is do what Nike says. Just do it. Practice with a secret account or a second account that no one knows about. Just practice. Publish content so that you understand those platforms, whichever one that you've decided to really focus on. You know, it could be audio, it could be video, it could be YouTube Shorts. I want you to understand also how brands are using these platforms and what they're looking for. Engage in internships, volunteer and volunteer projects, leverage social media to network and showcase your work. So again, using social the way it's been intended the way it's intended, right? Engaging, learning, and giving value. That middle part, asking for help. I don't know about you, but it's very hard for me to ask for help. Even in my age, it's hard for me to ask for help. But what gets me over the hump of asking for help or asking for a recommendation or an introduction is that I know 100% that I have a supportive network. And I'm going to call back to that first slide when I talked about the network, your network and the spider web, right? It's you in the middle, and then all these different people that you're connected to. Even my nonprofit fundraising past, those folks, they're still in my network, because one day I might be able to introduce them to a marketer that they might need in their future jobs, in their future roles, or this other freelancer creator that I know who's, in their 20s. They need to be introduced to maybe the VP of sales of a different company, because maybe one day they'll be working together. It doesn't have to be tomorrow or today. It could be 5 years from now. But I personally like to connect people with others. So that's my jam. And that's where I feel like that's where your warmest supporters are going to be. That network that you are purposefully cultivating.
Yeah, I also find that it helps if you ask, if you're specific in what you're looking for. Instead of just saying, I'm looking for a job, can you help me? Say, I'm looking for a job working at an agency, as a videographer or whatever.
At this particular production company.
Yeah, the more specific you can get, the more helpful it is. But again, don't make them do your heavy lifting. Tell them what you're looking for.
Yeah, and it helps, and tee it up for them. Sometimes I'll even write up a little blurb about myself and like what I'm looking for, so that all they do is copy and paste it. and then they just email. And that's great. That works, because I've helped them help me, right? And on the flip side, to make this whole spider web work, I would do the same for others, right? So what can I offer my connections? What value can I offer? Maybe if we're starting out, maybe it's it could be just teaching someone how to use TikTok. That's so easy. Well, sorry, I was gonna say so easy, but it's not easy for everyone. Sometimes it's hard for others to understand one platform over another. And so maybe it's, maybe it's education that you offer. Maybe it's you connecting that person with someone else too. And then I want to talk quickly about internships. So if we're looking for internships, I would look, and I checked EntertainmentCareers.Net. There is an internships listing, I believe, and it's just all internship listings. But I would also make a list of 20 or 30 companies or agencies or brands that you want to work with, those that you have an affinity for. Ask around for an introduction. We could use LinkedIn, you can use email. If you don't have an introduction, if you don't have a connection yet, then I would reach out via email with an introduction message, your resume, maybe asking for an informational interview, just to see like what the process looks like, if there are any openings. It doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. So if say, can I have 20 minutes? Because 20 minutes is less than a half an hour. It seems doable. And again, it gets back to like, how can you make their life easier?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I know we're coming to the end here. So
we have a couple of questions. We could probably still have some time to. Oh my gosh, no, we don't.
I'm going to do it really fast. So we recapped here. We talked about content creation, examples of what companies are posting to hire. So they're hiring content creators in-house as well. And then we walked through portfolio creation and your resume and networking. So the last thing I want to stress is that we all started somewhere. We all started somewhere like at step 0. So people don't expect you to know everything, right? You absolutely should speak up, ask questions, learn. With that, I thank you for sticking with me today for the full hour. I want to go over to questions really quickly, but I also want to click over to the next slide here, which is about entertainment careers. EntertainmentCareers.Net. So there are plenty of resources on the website for you to take advantage of. There is a section called Content Creator Jobs that you can also pull up, and you can also use a search bar and just put content and pull up all the different other jobs that there are available. There are podcast jobs as well that are available on the site. The next thing, lastly, because I think this might help you with the next question, Karen, is on the last slide, I have resources for you. So again, short list of some resources to think about if you're thinking of becoming a creator for yourself and working for brands, as a freelancer, news and education, some newsletters, and then content creation tools.
Yes.
Yeah,
that answers the question who was looking for video creation. The content creation, that covers all the ones that I would recommend.
Yep. Let's see. Is paying for Canva account the way to go? You do not have to pay for Canva, but the reason why I do it is because you can save your brand colors, brand fonts, brand logos, all of that stuff. All of that is put together, kind of like your own folder. So if you're using it for different companies, you can also create brand folders for each company. And so you're not constantly like trying to find things. It's already there. It's in the folder.
Canva is great. I do think that Canva is worth going Canva Pro. I would definitely say learn CapCut, learn the basics of TikTok. It is so sexy right now. Everybody's looking for TikTok creators. And it's such a specific way of creating video that just saying that you've created video for YouTube does not translate necessarily to being able to create a good TikTok. So I would learn CapCut.
CapCut, which is owned by TikTok.
How does one gain the analytical experience when coming from the creative TV producing sides? Lots of creative executive jobs seem to require having this experience.
Analytical experience when create on those. Okay, so the first thing is, it kind of depends on what we're talking about. Are we talking about social media analytics or like web analytics? Because if we're talking about, if we're talking about social media analytics, just taking a look at your own analytics, like your own accounts, is helpful, right? You can look at Instagram and their native their analytics dashboard. You can look at Facebook and Facebook pages, look at their dashboard. What I think what maybe they're looking for is the ability to look at the numbers to say whether or not something is successful, right? Based on numbers, not by anecdotal data, but really like, what is the number here? If someone said, oh yeah, this video did really well on Facebook, we had 100,000 views, and out of 100,000 views, we looked at the Google Analytics on the website to see that they came from Facebook to our website and actually converted into a sale. Let's say 10% of them did. I would say that's a pretty good factor of a great video that converted over.
Honestly, learning analytics would probably be an entire webinar in itself. Brad.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good question, and there's a lot to it.
Yeah, lots of these creative executive jobs seem to require having this experience. Yeah, they're most likely they're looking at numbers because they need to prove whether or not their content or their media worked.
Yeah,
and
it's all about convincing their boss that it worked, and they can't just a boss won't listen to just anecdotal or qualitative stuff. They need to have actual quantitative numbers. So, you can't just say it looked cool. People thought it was cool. It was like it looked cool and 50,000 people watched it and all these people clicked over to here. And that's the kind of stuff that C-suite gets really excited about.
Sure. There's another question about spec projects in portfolios as a recruiter. Okay, so for me, again, I'm working with small businesses. I'm not working with like a Warner Brothers or a Disney or a Paramount. So that's when you're talking about spec projects, we're talking about like spec scripts, right? And like that kind of stuff. Shoot, I don't even think you can talk right now.
I always figured it was like saying like, creating a video as if you were already creating a video for like a brand or something. I want to work.
You haven't started. Why not do this? Why not? I'd love to see it. This is better than zero, right? This is better than nothing. I can't see
it's not like creepy.
Creepy. What do you mean creepy?
Well, I've seen people have done this before, and you're like, whoa, they really did a huge dive into our social media. Like, it's like creepy's the wrong word. Unnerving. I think that just enough to show your enthusiasm is enough. I don't, if you obviously spent 10 hours working on this just for me, I find that a little odd.
Correct. Yeah. Don't spend that much money. No, you're not getting paid for this. So no. I just want to, and again, I'm looking at this question as a person who's hiring for UGC for social media. So it's a lot, it's not as intensive as someone that might be hiring for like a TV show or a studio. So I'm really looking for, again, your angle, your story, how you approach this project, and the angle that you're taking. Again, paper plates, cups, compostable cups, not super sexy, but how are you going to make this attractive to my target audience? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Um,
Generally, is there a minimum number of followers or any other metrics for a personal or self-run social media account to be taken seriously by employers?
okay, so a really good question, but I hate it because the follower number is such a vanity metric. I totally understand, because there's got to be some kind of way for brands or influencer marketers to kind of eyeball and say, okay, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, because they're going through so many
As
creators.
somebody who's worked for a major brand, if they had less than 500 followers, I didn't pay any attention to them.
I'm always looking for about 1,000, at least 1,000 followers. And now, again, going back to my small brands who have a small budget, we're looking at people and this is like very surface level, right? I'm only looking at people around between 10,000 and 15,000 followers and below. That's who we're looking for, because by the time they get to like 30,000, 50,000 followers, whether or not they bought them or not, my brand, my clients, they cannot afford those folks anymore. They're now they may be requiring a $2,000 rate. And we're like, okay, maybe our total was $2,000. That was our budget. We've blown it. So we're sometimes we adjust. But again, it's such a vanity metric. I totally understand where you're at, because I feel the same way. Some folks are like, oh, no, we only talk to people at 10,000, and that's the minimum. And that's fine, because again, these influencer managers, they have to have some kind of, they've got to have some kind of guard,
selling up to the C-suite, but they have 10,000 followers.
Right. But really what I would love to see, and if you have this information, you should have this information on your social media platforms when you're looking at the data. I would like to see your engagement rate. How engaged and how active is your community? The people who are following you and the people that are, watching your and consuming your content, how often are they liking and commenting and sharing your content? That to me is more important, because then I know there's amplification.
Yeah. If you have 250 people who love you and buy anything that you recommend, that's 250 purchases. That's a win.
That's a complete win for us. Absolutely. Okay.
I think for Bobby, your question about the cartoon that you have, about the best way to kind of get that to take off. That's a hard one. It's a longer question. I actually have a friend who's doing something very similar, but with a cat creator, a cat character that she created. It's about so much more than just creating the character and being consistent, which you definitely have to do. Now it's on you to market yourself. Look for festivals that or feature this kind of thing. See what best of lists you can get on. Like think small, because obviously not through huge places are gonna take something that is not as well known, but you're halfway there. You're creating. It sounds like you're enthusiastic about it. You're consistent. Now you just got to market yourself in order for somebody else to start being interested in you enough to take it from there.
I'm reading the chat, so I'm just making sure that you're speaking. I'm like, wait, where's this?
Oh, it's over in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
You're thinking more like Terminix or Orkin. Couldn't I use my character for that? You might be thinking too big, but that's not to say that that's impossible. I it's hard to say. Hard to say on something like this.
That's great.
Yeah, no, it's great. Keep up with it, because the more you do it and the more consistent you are, the more likely that they may see you organically. Put yourself in places that they will find you organically.
And who is to say that you, because you have a property, and I know I know we need to cut it, but who is to say you have this property now? You yourself are a business. Why can't you hire UGC creators or influencers and say, you know what, I could use your help. Can you help me amplify this project? Could we do that? And that's something to think about. You know, why not? I don't see why not.
Because if you get your own followers, then again, it gets back to how are you making Terminix or Orkin's job easier? Well, if you end up with like, 100,000 followers, then they're going to look at you as, oh, well, there's 100,000 followers that we could, people that we could reach. So it's always about making their life easier, not just what would be cool and awesome for you.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so I think that this is time for us to peace out. You guys are all going to be receiving. I know Chris and I can talk about this forever.
We do. I'm gonna stop sharing here.
But so thank you guys for joining us today for these really good questions. You're going to get an email that has a survey in it. So please give your feedback and ask any questions that we didn't ask today. Ask and answer today, or you can also reach out to Chris directly on LinkedIn. She is at Chris Lam Connects. So, and with that, we are done.
Thank you again. Thank you for attending and spending time with us. We'll see you at the next one.
Bye, guys.